Good morning, students. Let us begin from here today. The lines from the textbook are: As for Sadav, every day he examined the wound carefully. The last stitches had been pulled out this morning, and the young man would, in a fortnight means in within 15 days, within 2 weeks, be nearly as well as ever. Sadav went back to his office and carefully typed a letter to the chief of police, reporting the whole matter. On the 21st day of February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of my house. Dear students, these are the lines which he typed in the letter reporting to the chief of the police. So far, he typed and then he opened a secret drawer of his desk and put the unfinished report into it. Sada was performing his role perfectly. He would examine the wound every day. One morning, the last stitches were removed from the injured man's body, and he would be as well as ever in the next 15 days. In the meantime, Sadav went to his office and wrote a letter to the chief of the police to report the entire matter to him. Sadav started his report and he wrote that on the 21st of February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of his house. Sadav had just typed this much of the report. He opened the drawer of his desk and kept this unfinished report in it. So, dear students, this is the explanation of the above passage. Now, further lines from the textbook are: On the seventh day after that, two things happened. In the morning, the servants left together, their belongings tied in large square cotton kerchiefs. When Hannah got up in the morning, nothing was done, the house not cleaned and the food not prepared, and she knew what it meant. She was dismayed and even terrified, but her pride as a mistress would not allow her to show it. Instead, she inclined her head gracefully when they appeared before her in the kitchen, and she paid them off and thanked them for all that they had done for her. They were crying, but she did not cry. The cook and the gardener had served Sadao since he was a little boy in his father's house, and Yumi cried because of the children. She was so grieving that after she had gone, she ran back to Hannah. So these are the lines from the textbook. Dear students, let us have some of the word meanings over here. Kerchief means a square piece of cloth. Dismayed means shocked. Mistress means a woman in a position of authority or control. Inclined means bent towards one side. Grieving means here in a state of sadness. So, dear students, let us have the explanation of the above passage. On the seventh day after that, two things happened. The servants of the house left in the morning. They had tied their belongings in huge pieces of cloth. When Hannah got up in the morning, she saw that the work had not been done, the house was dirty, and the food had not been cooked. She realized that the servants were up to something. She was shocked and horrified. Horrified means here terrified. When she came to know that the servants were leaving, Hannah did not show her feelings to the servants. Instead, she remained calm and maintained her grace. Grace means here dignity. As the lady of the house, she paid the servants and thanked them for their services. As the servants had been working there for many years, they were crying, but Hannah did not cry. The cook and the gardener were very old employees. They had been employed by Sadav's father and had served Sadav since his childhood. Yumi was crying because she would miss the children. She was so sad that she ran up to Hannah after she had left. So, this is the explanation of the above passage. Now, further lines from the textbook are: If the baby misses me too much tonight, send for me. I'm going to my own house and you know where it is. So, this was to be said by that lady, that Yumi, the nurse. Thank you, Hannah said, smiling. But she told herself she would not send for Yumi, however, the baby cried. Explanation is Yumi said to Hannah that if the baby missed her at night, she could call her. She further added that she was going to her own house and Hannah knew where her house was. Hannah smiled and thanked her for the offer, but to herself she said that in case the baby cried, she would not call for Yumi. So, in this way, you can say that uh, Hannah, even at the time of trials, was only helping her husband and she didn't mind what would happen next. So, this is also showing a true or faithful or sincere wife. Further lines from the text are she made the breakfast and Sadao helped with the children. Neither of them spoke of the servants beyond the fact that they were gone. But after Hannah had taken morning food to the prisoner, she came back to Sadao. The next morning, Hannah prepared the breakfast and Sadao helped her by looking after the children. Neither of them talked regarding the servants, but after Hannah served the morning food to the prisoner of war, she came back to Sadao, probably to talk something. Probably means perhaps. Further lines from the textbook are why is it we cannot see clearly what we ought to do? She asked him, even the servants see more clearly than we do. Why are we different from other Japanese? Hana was very worried and she questioned that why they were not very clear about what they ought to do. So, this is the explanation of the above passage. She added that even their servants were very clear as compared to them. She said that why were they behaving differently from other Japanese people? Hana wanted to say that as Americans were their enemies, they should not have treated that prisoner of war and they should have let him die just like any other Japanese would have done. Now, you can say this here for a while, even Hana is rather troubled and she is also uh, trying to understand the situation because all other servants even they were just going against and they didn't want that even their master should suffer because of an escaped prisoner. So this was the a kind of devotion towards the family where the servants were working. Sadao did not answer, but a little later he went into the room where the prisoner was and said brusquely, today you may get up on your feet. I want you to stay up only 5 minutes at a time. Tomorrow you may try it twice as long. It would be well that you get back your strength as quickly as possible. So these are the lines from the text. Briskly means here quickly. Explanation of the above passage is Sadao did not reply to Hana, but after some time he went into the room where the prisoner of war was resting and spoke very fast. He said that that day the man could get up and stand on his feet. Sadao wanted him to stand only for 5 minutes at a time. Further, he added that the next day he could try to stand for double the time, that is 10 minutes. Sadao also said that it would be good for everyone that the man regained strength as soon as possible. Sadao hinted that they wanted to get rid of the American as early because he had become a cause of trouble for them. So, somewhere the planning of Dr. Sadao to escape the American that escaped prisoner is clear in front of all of us. Dear students, further lines are from the textbook. He saw the flicker of terror on the young face. that was still very pale. Okay, the boy murmured. Murmured means here said very slowly. Evidently, he was determined to say more. I feel I ought to thank you, doctor, for having saved my life. Explanation of the above passage is Sadao saw that his words brought a hint of terror and scare on the face of the young boy. His face was still very pale and colorless because he was very weak. The boy spoke in a low voice and said, "Okay." It appeared that he wanted to speak something more, but he just said that he wanted to thank Sadao for saving his life. Further lines from the textbook are Don't thank me too early, Sadao said coldly. He saw the flicker of terror again in the boy's eyes. Boys means here that man's eyes. Terror as unmistakable as an animal's. The scars on his neck were crimson for a moment. Those scars, what were they? Sadao did not ask. Crimson means here bright red color. Explanation of the above passage is Sadao was very expressionless when he said that the boy did not need to thank him yet. As he spoke this, he saw that the hint of scare again appeared in the boy's eyes. The writer compares the boy's terrorized eyes to that of a scared animal. It means which is going to be butchered, such an animal. So the injury marks on the neck of the boy turned the bright red in color for a while. Sadao thought that what has caused those injury marks, but he did not ask the boy about them. Further lines are In the afternoon, the second thing happened. As earlier, we have got to know that in the afternoon, two things happened together. So, this was the second situation. So, in the afternoon, the second thing happened. Hannah, working hard on unaccustomed labor, saw a messenger come to the door in official uniform. Her hands went weak and she could not draw her breath. The servants must have told already. She ran to Sadao, gasping, unable to utter a word. But by then, the messenger had simply followed her through the garden, and there he stood. She pointed at him helplessly. Some word meanings are here. Unaccustomed labor means not used to perform hard work. Gasping means struggling to breathe, unable to speak. Explanation of the above passage is that day the second incident happened in the afternoon. Hannah was busy with the household work as the servants had left all of a sudden. She had to perform all the work which she was not used to. She was very tired. She saw that a messenger wearing official uniform had come to the house. As she saw him, her hands went weak and she was unable to breathe. This was because she felt that the servants must have told the authorities that they were sheltering an enemy. Hannah ran up to Sadao and she was struggling to breathe. She was unable to speak. By that time, the messenger also followed her through the garden and he stood in front of Sadao. Hannah was helpless and she pointed her finger towards the messenger. Sadao looked up from his book. He was in his office, the other partition of which was thrown open to the garden for the southern sunshine. Here, southern sunshine means the door of the office which opened into the garden faced the south direction. This means that the sunshine which entered the office was not direct and bright, instead, it was a shady sunshine. Explanation of the above passage is Sadao was reading a book and when he saw Hannah, he looked up. He was sitting in his office, which had a partition in it. The part of the office beyond the partition opened into the garden and was full of shady sunshine. What is it he asked the messenger, and then he rose, seeing the man's uniform. Sadao asked the messenger the matter due to which he had visited them. When he saw that messenger was wearing a uniform, he stood up as a mark of respect. So you can say that he was giving respect to even the messenger, because the messenger was from really a very high positioned or high ranking officer's messenger. You are to come to the palace, the man said. The old general is in pain. So who is the general? General Takima. Okay. Explanation of the above passages. The messenger said that Sadao was supposed to accompany him to the palace. He added that the old general was suffering in pain and Sadao was supposed to visit him and treat him as a doctor. So, dear student, let us have a break over here and further explanations will be made tomorrow. So, thank you, students.